Welcome to Larry the Alchemist, and welcome to a special midweek Sabbath Sunday. We're coming at you here midweek because we have some surprise breaking news. Really, this just came out of nowhere. The announcement of a new release called Earth, The Lost Tapes. Do I have that right? The Lost Recordings?
Yeah,
Uh,
the law.
Lost Recordings, Lost Tapes. I can't remember exactly how it's phrased.
Um, yeah, the lost recordings.
The Lost Recordings. All right, so you may be saying, who is Earth and why should I care? Well, you should care because Earth was Black Sabbath before they changed their name to Black Sabbath. It's the four original members, it's the precursor to Black Sabbath, and it was sort of that when they were Earth, they started off as a blues band, and started transitioning to Black Sabbath. And early on, the sound that we know as Black Sabbath, they wrote the song Black Sabbath, the song Wicked World was some of the early stuff that they wrote. And then they changed their name to Black Sabbath. Now, to clarify a few things, so this recording is recordings of the band before supposedly they had changed their name to Black Sabbath. I've seen comments all over the internet where I'll see people say this is a cash grab from Sharon and stuff like that. But I think this needs a little clarification, although we are sort of speculating on some of this. I made a video a long time ago on the difference between a bootleg and an unofficial recording. And to just very briefly summarize, a bootleg is something that's completely illegal. The person putting it out has no rights to the recording, to anything. It's completely illegal. An unofficial recording, I'm going to use the example of Black Sabbath's live album, Live at Last. That was a situation where their then manager at the time, Patrick Meehan, they must, in order to get out of the contract with him, he somehow got the rights to the recordings that eventually became Live at Last. Thus, because he legally had the rights to those recordings, he was able to put them out, but the band never endorsed it. But there was nothing the band could do because, again, their manager at that time, Patrick Meehan, had the legal rights to it. So this Earth situation is seeming like that's what this is, although we haven't had anybody officially say this. For one big clue is they don't mention the name Black Sabbath on the cover of the album. It's just Earth, the Lost Recordings. And I'm sure this is probably a situation very similar to Live at Last, where their first manager, Jim Simpson managed them through their first record, Paranoid, but almost as soon as Paranoid came out, the band moved on and let him go. So these are probably recordings, according to the website. These are studio recordings. They're not live recordings, and maybe we'll talk about that in a little bit about some of the really early live Black Sabbath recordings. These are studio recordings. There's three blues covers. There's a song called Song for Jim, two versions of it, one with guitar, one with flute. Song for Jim was hinted at there was a Black Sabbath VHS combo that came out in the early 2000s, and you hear a little 2 second snippet of Song for Jim, where in that VHS it's listed as an Earth demo. We also get an untitled song, a song called what is it, Free Man, something like that. And then Wicked World and Warning. So that's where this stands as of the making of this video. It is July 2nd. This is supposed to come out July 25th, I believe. So we're here to just discuss this very surprising, kind of out of nowhere, very quick. It's coming out in a couple weeks. It was just announced like maybe 4 or 5 days ago. And that's about it. This is stuff that I think a lot of people didn't even know that this existed. But here we are, Darin, Earth, the Lost Recordings. What are you thinking? What do you think it's going to be? What was your reaction when you saw the news break on this?
Well, I was pretty shocked. I hadn't heard any news leading up to it. I was just on social media one morning, and there it was in my feed, and I looked and I thought, well, I mean, is this for real or is this just like some kind of bootleg? Because South bootlegs are
Hmm.
constantly coming out. They're always being manufactured and sold, and it looked like that's what it was. And uh, there have been versions of a lot of these songs circulating on YouTube and also in bootleg form where you could go to a record convention or something or even a shop and you could buy some of these that I guess were probably downloaded from YouTube. I'm not sure where they're how they surfaced, but the versions are listenable, but they're not very good. So when I saw this Earth, the Lost Recordings come up, and immediately I was engaged and I started reading it and about it, and it was being put out by Jim Simpson, of course, as you said, was Sabbath's former manager up until Paranoid. And as an aside, if you're a collector and you have a copy of a Paranoid with the big bear credit on the gatefold, that is the actual first pressing. That
Mm.
was removed. That line was removed in early pressings, but still the very first pressing has Jim Simpson and Big Bear Productions. There's four lines. Most of the versions we came across, if you weren't in the UK, and this is only the Vertigo version too. So if you didn't have a Vertigo version, if you had a Warner Brothers version, there was no version that had a Jim Simpson credit. But that's where the Big Bear first I first became aware of what Big Bear was, and that was Jim Simpson's management company. But Jim Simpson also runs a label. Is one of the oldest independent labels that was founded in 1968, Birmingham, in the UK. And Jim Simpson was Sabbath's manager up until a point. And I would surmise, although I don't have a lot of info, and you mentioned that too, that Jim Simpson is the owner of these recordings, and he can do with them what he wants, and that's what he's doing. And he's is it a cash grab? Absolutely. And it's perfectly timed with the back to the beginning. And this is definitely a back to the beginning type of thing. I mean, it doesn't get any earlier than this as far as recorded material. I was a little surprised that the Rebel wasn't on it, and you'd mentioned the documentary VHS. It was actually the Rebel that there was a snippet of. I don't think it was Song for Jim. Or
No,
maybe they
it's on
played both.
there. Song for Jim is on there. I just watched it actually before we started
Okay.
recording. It's just a little 2 second boom, bum, boom, bum, boom, bum, boom. You just hear that little melody and they say Song
Yeah,
for Jim, and then it goes to the Rebel, which they play a little bit of a longer clip of the Rebel.
yeah, that's actually sung. So the Rebel isn't on this, and another song that I like a lot that came out, I guess, a few years ago was unearthed, and that was called "When I Came Down." So that's not on this either. But the track listing is it begins with Blue Suede Shoes, Evening, Wee Wee Baby, Untitled, Free Man, Song for Jim guitar version, Song for Jim flute version, Wicked, Wicked World demo, and Warning. And so these are the earliest recordings of what would later be known as Black Sabbath. Um, yeah, and like you, I saw people saying that, oh, this is a cash grab from Sharon Osbourne. I doubt it has anything to do with Sharon Osbourne, but it's curious that she hasn't tried to intervene or issue a cease and desist. My guess is that she can't because Jim Simpson is probably legally entitled to do what he wants with these. That would be my guess because I mean I can't imagine that if there was a way that Sharon could block these or in some way take them for her own use that she wouldn't have. But here it is, and it's coming out July 27th. It's going to be officially released, so pretty exciting. Um, I'm excited about it. I'm definitely going to buy it, and I'm not going to get caught up into this whole cash grab. You know, who has the rights to it, who doesn't. At this point, it's
Yeah.
fair game, and I'm all about it. So
Yeah.
that's where I am.
Just a couple points. It is called The Legendary Lost Tapes. Earth, the legendary lost tapes. Now, let me ask you because you had, unless I'm misunderstanding you, you had sort of said that some of this stuff had been circulating around, but
Sure.
studio recordings of this stuff, like a student, I'm
Yeah.
not talking about uh, that Germany thing. There's a studio recording of Blue Suede Shoes and stuff like this, like these blues things, and
Yeah, there was a 1969 thing. If you look on YouTube, Song for Jim is on that.
you're not talking about
Nine,
that live show because there is a recording of Song for Jim live.
yeah, no, it's not a live show. It's the individual tracks, and not all that is on here, but there are some things. Song for Jim is on it. Blue Suede Shoes, I know what you're talking about. You're talking about the video from the Beat Club.
Yeah.
Okay, no, that, and I don't know. Is this version of Blue Suede Shoes, is this studio or is it live?
Well, according to the press release, that these are studio recordings.
Okay,
Yeah, because when I first saw this, my first reaction was, oh, this is going to be something like the Dumfries tape. For those who don't know, the Dumfries show was, I think it stands as the earliest recording of Black Sabbath. And when that came out, that caused quite a lot of excitement because it was the earliest known recording of Black Sabbath. And they play some blues covers on that. I believe they play Song for Jim on there. I know there's a live recording of Song for Jim. I've never heard a studio recording of Song for Jim. These other things, I don't know what they are. Evening, Wee Wee Baby. Now, these could be some of these things that they were playing live. Like sometimes you don't know what the actual name of these songs are. Now, in the description, it describes three blues covers, which are the first three: Blue Suede Shoes, Evening,
you see
and
this?
no,
No,
no, it's all
this
blurred
is on
out.
YouTube, and what it says is, yeah, I wish I wouldn't get wasn't getting a glare. It says Earth pre-Black Sabbath demo 1969, and Thomas James is the first track on this, and it has it. If you look it up on YouTube,
Yeah, looking it up now.
yeah, Earth pre-Black Sabbath demo 1969.
Yeah, I was just listening to this today. This, I think they mentioned that Thomas James isn't Black Sabbath. The guy says in the
Like,
notes here, there's an edit to the notes, is a studio jam from another
yeah, I
band.
heard that too. Yeah.
And so the Rebels on here. When I Came Down is on here. All right, so nobody knows exactly what's going on with this. According to the press release, this is studio stuff, that none of this is live. Now, we don't know. Wicked demo, I'm assuming, is Wicked World. I don't know. In the release, he mentions that he says something like, you hear the beginnings of heavy metal in the songs listed as Untitled and Free Man. And then, of course, the Wicked demo and Warning. Which makes me wonder if he's not even allowed to use the Black Sabbath titles. Maybe he just, instead of writing Wicked World, he wrote Wicked to just to be safe and avoid any potential, copyright conflicts or anything. Yeah. So you mentioned Sharon and the Black Sabbath crew not saying anything about this. I saw now I've been reading the Steve Hoffman forum, and the Steve Hoffman forum is like an audio file forum, and they've got about a 3-page thread on this right now, and there's quotes from Sharon and I believe Geezer that someone says pertains to this, that I can't find right now, that when I find it, I will read it to everybody. The other notice is you mentioned the Rebel and When I Came Down. From the research that I read, And Darren, I don't know if you have Martin Popoff's Black Sabbath FAQ book.
Yeah, I have that.
In the appendix of that book, Martin talks about these 6 or 7 CDs full of Black Sabbath, what later turned out to be the outtakes that landed up on like the deluxe self-titled Master of Reality and all that stuff. At that time, this stuff hadn't been released yet, and Martin sort of lists what's on each one of these CDs, these alternate takes, and I didn't quite understand it from reading the book, but that stuff was owned by somebody who struck up a deal with the Black Sabbath camp for them to buy it or use it. And in that group of recordings was The Rebel and When I Came Down. So some people on the Steve Hoffman forum, and if you've from reading Martin's book, that might imply that that was somehow somebody else somehow had the rights to the Rebel and When I Came Down. So maybe that explains why those two aren't on here because it would make perfect sense. Those are in the same time frame, for those to be on here. And I would think if he had the rights to them, unless he's planning a second release, unless he's got something else in the works, I would have thought if he had the rights to that, that he would have released it. So that's my theory on why the Rebel and When I Came Down aren't on here. And some of the people on the Steve Hoffman forum sort of reiterate that point that they think that those master tapes are owned by somebody else. But yeah, so yeah, there's a lot here to we don't really know what's going on. Luckily, we don't have to wait too long, which is a good thing. I'm glad this isn't one of these things like we're sitting here and they're talking about how it's going to be released in 2026 or something like that, and we got to wait 9 months speculating what it is. You made a point that, and I totally agree with this. The timing isn't a coincidence. I'm sure he's doing it, one, to capitalize on the Back to the Beginning show, and two, to use it as a smokescreen if there is anything slightly fuzzy with this and you want to get your enemy distracted. Now is probably a good time to do it because I'm sure that they're tied up. And that's what Joe Sigler said. There's a quote from Joe Sigler, who runs the black-sabbath.com website. That's not the official Black Sabbath website. But on the Steve Hoffman forum here, they quote Joe as saying something like, this is legit, this is real, but it's surely not supported by Black Sabbath. Thus, that's why you're not getting any official statements from Black Sabbath. You're not. This isn't posted on the Black Sabbath Twitter or anything like that. So
Yeah, no doubt it's legit. But I think people are a little bit confused by the fact that it isn't endorsed by Black Sabbath and it's
yeah,
considered to be official, but it really isn't official. It should be considered unauthorized. But the tapes are legit. The recordings are legitimate. They're owned by Jim Simpson apparently, and it's coming out. So it's something to be excited about. It should have been done a long time ago, and we've talked about this before. How there's a lot of things that Sabbath could do that would be very fan friendly, but for one reason or another, they don't do that. There's other bands that do that make rare recordings and rare live shows and things like that available for the fans. Sabbath doesn't. Now you mentioned in Martin Popoff's FAQ book how some of these files or these recordings were put on these versions of the albums. Rhino released the first 8 albums, and actually beyond that, I think they went up to Dehumanizer. But in the early, and they released them at different intervals. So the Dio stuff came out, I think, around 2009, and then later, Rhino released these double records in around 2016, I think. I don't hold me to that, but it was much later. And so there's a double record version of the self-titled album, and that has Evil Woman, because Evil Woman wasn't on the Warner Brothers version. It was replaced by Wicked World. Wicked World wasn't on the UK Vertigo version. Evil Woman was the first song on side two. So in this Rhino version, you've got Wicked World in its usual place in the Warner Brothers version, but then as a bonus track on the second record, it begins with Evil Woman. But we have Black Sabbath studio outtake, Black Sabbath instrumental, the Wizard studio outtake, Behind the Wall of Sleep studio outtake, but nothing is what is compiled on this Jim Simpson Big Bear legendary lost recordings. So it's pretty cool. I mean, this is generally something that has been elusive to fans for forever. And finally, it's going to be released and something to be excited about, as far as I'm concerned. A little bit of background on it. Recorded in Zella Studios in Birmingham, and it was never released, of course. Later that year, they changed the name to Black Sabbath. So these are actually recordings of when the band was going by the name Earth. It isn't early recordings from 1969 that people surmise was before they were called Black Sabbath. These are legitimately Earth recordings before the band changed their name to Black Sabbath. So yeah, I mean it's 57 years later, whatever it is,
We'll take it.
better late than never. I mean, you
Yeah.
never know. And it's very typical of Black Sabbath, even though they didn't technically have anything to do with this because it's unauthorized, but it follows the plan. Things just kind of fall out of the sky at random times. You never know. Never let down your guard because there may be something
Yeah.
that just gets released,
Yeah,
and
because
here we are.
in the world of Sabbath, it was sort of most people believed, I know I did, that really the only thing that was left out there was Song for Jim, The Rebel, When I Came Down. The Rebel has been fully released. It's all over YouTube. Anybody can check that out, but it's never been officially released in any capacity. When I Came Down, there's a snippet of it, about a minute and a half of it. Don't be deceived. There's a longer version that someone edited so that the first half just repeats. So technically, the
Yeah,
full thing has never been released. And then sort of the missing link was Song for Jim. And that's pretty much what everybody thought was, okay, that's all that's left out there. So this was a real surprise. I did some research. I was looking around on the internet. I looked through some of my Black Sabbath books. I did find, and maybe I left the book over there, this book that we both recently read, Black Sabbath in the Decades book. Uh, and there's a little mention in the beginning about demos where they say something about Jim Simpson says there were some other songs recorded, but he doesn't say anything. And this is probably what he was referring to. Now, I want to read something from the Steve Hoffman forum. Somebody posted this, so can't speak to how accurate this is. This is from about 4 or 5 days ago from Louder magazine. Quote, it is legitimate. Is it a legitimate sanctioned release? Question mark. I don't know who is replying to this. Quote, my understanding is that the new album is a venture by former Sabbath manager Jim Simpson, who paid for the recordings back in 1969. No band members are actively involved, although they have been made aware and would get any royalties from the sale. However, the article also contained a quote from Sharon Osbourne, who said she did not approve of its release. However, the band are ambivalent about the release. And then the poster says, this has since been removed from the article as of this morning, as of the morning of this guy posting
yeah.
on this forum. So the band is, and here's the thing, Jim Simpson, as you mentioned already, he's been running this longest running independent label. He's still very active. There's a YouTube channel, Big Bear Music UK, where he sponsors blues shows and every things like this.
Blues and jazz.
Blues and jazz. His Henry's Blues. house, which was legendary for being like one of the first Black Sabbath gigs where the four guys played together, was something that Jim ran. And I guess he still runs this Henry's Blues House, not in the same location, but in some other location. But, anyways, point being, the guy isn't just some Yahoo that found this in a box in a garage. He probably knows how to make sure he's not going to get sued and that this thing isn't going to come out and it's just going to get yanked from the shelves. I haven't pre-ordered mine. Have you pre-ordered yours?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah, so pre-orders are up. Was it a US seller or was it only a UK seller?
It was a UK seller. So
Okay.
it's gonna take a little while. I'll probably get it. Well, I mean, hopefully it'll arrive on the release date, but I'm expecting it to be later than that, probably about a week or so later. I don't know that it has US distribution. I don't know what the
Yeah.
distribution is like, but it is going to be available on CD and vinyl. So of course I got the vinyl version. But
Which could be another loophole that sometimes when I made my video about bootlegs and unofficial releases, a lot of people asked about, oh, well, I went into FYE and I saw some AC/DC box set of FM broadcasts. Well, those FM broadcasts fall into weird loopholes. Every country has their own copyright restrictions. Some things fall into public domain quicker than others. And that's why you see those. You can see them on Amazon too, collections of FM broadcasts because they fall through some weird loophole. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's also something like maybe he's not able to, due to laws and everything, he's only able to legally release this in the UK. I don't know because it seems you're right. I looked to see if there was a US seller and I couldn't find one at this, at the point where we're making this recording. So,
no. It could also be that he doesn't really have the means. I mean, you would think it would be pretty easy to find a distributor for this stuff, but maybe he just didn't go to that length.
yeah,
Um, it could be a modest first pressing. I mean, they're not, from what I can tell, they're not numbered or anything like that, but he may be just doing it. I mean, he exists. Big Bear exists as a record label, but I don't know of any. Then again, I don't really follow jazz and blues releases, but I mean, he does function as a record label, and maybe he just works within his means from the UK. He doesn't have any kind of a big
yeah,
distributor, whatever. Um, and I guess if this thing really takes off, maybe somebody will approach him about being able to distribute it, and there'll be a later pressing of who knows how many copies. But for right now, it is what it is, and it's only available through the UK. Ordering things from the UK isn't usually much of a setback for me. I mean, I can get usually things, some of the bootlegs I get, and by bootlegs, I mean they're generally radio broadcasts. And when we did our Black Sabbath bootleg episode on Lair the Alchemist, we went into that a little bit, and most of the things that you can get from legitimate record stores and things like that were originally FM broadcasts, and they are legal. I mean, it isn't as though there's a distinction between those and the recordings, the audience recordings that somebody
yeah,
snuck a tape recorder into a show. Those are available too, but generally they're not available on vinyl and CD, and they you can't get them at like Plastic Head Distribution or one of the other heavy metal websites. They won't touch those things because it's illegal. But FM broadcasts are I have reason to suspect they are legal, and you could usually find them pretty easily. And they come out. I mean, there's like several different versions of some of these shows.
hmm
The
the Rhode
California
Island
Jam
show.
seems like it
Yeah,
gets put out every year by
yeah,
somebody, and it usually touts that it's remastered or something like that. But I mean, I have three different versions of it because I was the sucker that thought, oh, okay, well, this is going to sound different because it's remastered, and it really doesn't sound that much different. Um, so, I mean, that's where we are with this, and I think that it is good timing. I think that Jim Simpson was, if he's been holding on to these things, as he's been sitting on these things for a while and waiting for the right time, Yeah, I'd say now is probably the right time. And you said that it kind of there's a smoke screen. There's a back to the beginning thing that's taking place on July 5th. So I'm sure Sharon is very occupied as well as the other members of the band, and that's a great, smoke screen for this, and it's coming out, and he's already obviously got the wheels in motion. He's got a release date, pre-order. So I mean it's coming out.
Yeah, and it's certainly, let's be realistic here. This is not going to be something that we're going to sit here and say, wow, this is greater than Master of Reality. But it's a historical document, and I actually enjoy listening to Tony Iommi playing jazz and blues. Like, it's kind of funny that right before you sent me a message about that this was coming out, I just so happened to be listening to Mythology. Now, Mythology was the band that Tony and Bill were in before they hooked up with Geezer and Ozzy, and that was just a straight up British blues band doing covers. And there's a live recording of them that you can hear on YouTube where they play stuff like Spoonful. They play some stuff from the Beano, Eric Clapton, John, who is that? I just forgot who that was. The Beano is not John Spencer. I don't know. That Eric Clapton record, there's some cuts on there from that. And Iommi is he's a fantastic guitar player, but he's also very, very good at playing blues and jazz, swing type stuff. So it's really kind of fun listening to him play that stuff. And when you think about it, I don't know what year that mythology recording is. It's probably like 68, 67,
Yeah, 68, I think.
68.
I think it's 68. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, at that time, Iommi is hanging with he sounds as good as the other big guitar players who were out active at that time, which would have been like Page, Beck, Clapton, those guys, the Yardbirds. And he was playing right along with those guys. And it doesn't surprise me that Ian Anderson would have heard Tony Iommi playing like this, and especially
Yeah.
Jethro Tull in 1968 was very much a British blues band too. The first Jethro Tull album is very, very bluesy. That he would hear Tony Iommi playing and think like, yeah, I gotta snatch this guy up. So this could be interesting. The blues songs, maybe not the most exciting thing, but it could be interesting to hear Iommi kind of playing in this style. What's probably the most intriguing is the Untitled and Free Man,
Mhm.
because according to the description, these maybe lean more towards them moving towards the Black Sabbath sound. So yeah, I think that this is pretty exciting. I'm grateful for it. I mean, I never thought we would see any of this stuff. It always seemed like the Sabbath camp. And I think Iommi has even been quoted as kind of saying, like, I'm never gonna, I don't ever want to release that stuff. And if they wanted to release this stuff, they've had plenty of opportunities to do it. If the Sabbath camp even, I don't know, if they may not even have this stuff in their possession. But there's other stuff they could have released, like we've mentioned, the Rebel. They could have easily have dropped that in on the bonus disc for the first, Sabbath, these deluxe reissues and everything, and they've just chosen not to. So if this is the way we got to get this stuff, I mean, this is, if anything, maybe the Black Sabbath sees this and sees people talking about it and sees it selling and see people enjoying it, and maybe it'll make them realize, like, if they're still sitting on anything, that, hey, maybe we should put this out. There's people that do want this, and there is interest in this kind of thing. Because this tells me, like, that, okay, maybe we don't know every single thing that's out there. Maybe there's some live recording. The Dumfries thing just seemed to come out of nowhere years ago. That was probably what, like 15 years ago at this point. So you never know. You never know what they've got hidden in the vaults. So maybe this is a good thing. Maybe it'll sort of nudge them and push them a little bit to not be scared of this part of their history.
I think that this is definitely the back to the beginning. This concert, this celebration, is definitely going to spike interest in Black Sabbath. And I think that if they don't release something, if there isn't something that is in the pipeline following this, it would definitely be a very missed opportunity. It's going to, I mean, Black Sabbath right now is really trending because of what's taking place this weekend. And in the aftermath, I'm sure probably for about a month or two later, it'll continue to be trending, depending on what we see. And John, you and I will get together and we'll do a post game back to the beginning wrap up, which I'm looking forward to. But I mean, it would definitely be a missed opportunity if Sabbath doesn't try to, for lack of a better word, capitalize on this back to the beginning thing, and they could be sitting on things that they've just been waiting for the right time to release. The Rebel, so when I came down, maybe they have it, maybe they are just waiting for the right time, and it could be that following this thing on July 5th, who knows? I mean, they're full of surprises. I mean, we could see something that comes out a couple weeks later. It's a compilation of things never before heard recordings, live stuff, that will compete with this Jim Simpson release. So
Yeah.
you know,
All right, before we
have
wrap
to
it
wait
up,
and see.
yeah, definitely. I wanted to show everybody this book. This is a book that Darin and I have both recently read. Came out in 2022. And it just goes through them in the 70s and kind of album by album. And there's a section right before they get into the first album where they sort of give you a breakdown here of some of the demo situations. So there was a 1969 demo from Trident Studios from August 22nd. And it says here that there's an acetate. An acetate is like a master copy, if you will, of the Rebel and Song for Jim. And allegedly it has the name Black Sabbath written on this. He goes to mention that the Rebel is all over the internet. Song for Jim. The demo has not yet got out, although one live recording exists, recorded at in Rugman's Youth Club in Dumfries, which is what we've referenced that live recording. Then he goes on to say the 1969 demo recordings, Ladbroke Studios, Birmingham, October 7th. Simpson has said that the band recorded other songs along with the two which appeared on an acetate. So the two would be The Rebel and Song for Jim. One he has mentioned is a cover version of a song by Jimmy Rushing called Evening, which is here. The
Yep.
acetate of When I Came Down slash The Wizard was marked up as produced by Zella Promotions. This recording
Uh-huh.
of The Wizard has not surfaced, but the owner, Joe D. Agostino, was reported on Blabbermouth in 203 as saying that you can hardly hear the guitar in The Wizard. The vocals and harmonica come through well, though. So yeah, so there was a little bit of a hint through the different books I had. I went to see if anybody else had hinted at any of these things. So, but this is about all we get here, and this is what Simpson must have been referring to. These other songs that were recorded. He mentions Evening here, and maybe he just never had the master recordings for these and he just found them or something like that, or he finally figured out a legal way to put these out. But either way, it's intriguing. We're looking forward to it. We'll check back in with you, of course, when this does come out and give you our thoughts on it then when we actually hear it. So, any final thoughts, Darren?
No, not really. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to this weekend. Looking forward to watching the back to the beginning. We've had a couple episodes of Lair of the Alchemist where we've gone back and forth from excitement to, you know, trepidation and disappointment. But it's only a couple days away, so and we'll have a post game wrap up. I'm looking forward to that. But I know
Yeah.
it's an exciting time to be a Sabbath fan. It really is. I mean, social media, at least mine anyway, is all full of Sabbath stuff. Not only the release of this, but what's coming this weekend. It's like a Black Sabbath holiday. Lots of scenes from people walking around in Birmingham, and lots of the participants of the concert for Saturday having their pictures taken on the bench where the four members have their paintings on the across the bridge there.
Yeah, yeah, that was
So,
really cool.
so yeah, it's it's a really good time to be a Sabbath fan. Lots of things brewing and lots of excitement.
All right, and we'll be here at Sabbath Sunday to cover it all for you. So, like Darin said, we're going to be doing a post-game recap of the Back to the Beginning concert. So make sure you keep your eyes out for that. Don't forget to check out also our Black Sabbath podcast, Into the Void of Black Sabbath podcast. And yeah, we'll see you in a couple days actually, because like we said, this is a couple days out from the Back to the Beginning. So we're going to be back with y'all real soon. We're looking forward to sharing our thoughts and feelings on Back to the Beginning. Let us know what you guys think about Earth, the legendary lost recordings. Let us know in the comments down below, and we'll be seeing you all real soon.